everyone, I'm Rachel Tessman from StampYourArtOut.com, and I'm back today with another video full of outside-the-box ideas that I created with the July 2021 Paper Pumpkin Kit from Stampin' Up, titled The Adventure Begins. These kits, which are delivered straight to my mailbox each month, contain everything that I need to make fun, creative paper crafting cards and projects. This month's kit contains supplies for making 12 fun fold cards, 4 of the 3 different designs. Each kit includes a publication like this one with directions, full color illustrations, details about the kit, and a link to access a how-to video so that you can assemble the cards or projects as shown. The kit also includes inks and stamps that can be used again and again even after the consumables are used up. This July kit included a garden green ink pad and this exclusive stamp set. Paper Pumpkin kits are just $22 plus tax per month in the US. Shipping's included, you control which months you get your kits, and there's no commitment or obligation. The kits are a Stampin' Up! Product, so the colors, images, and supplies always coordinate with many other products they have. I'll be using some of these in the alternate projects I create today. You can find the items I used listed below and linked to my online store, along with the links to learning more about Paper Pumpkin kits, starting your subscription through me so I can spoil you with exclusive ideas, gifts, and prizes, joining my Paper Pumpkin fan club on Facebook where you can see even more alternate project ideas shared daily, and if you're watching my video on YouTube, a link to my website where I've shared photos of the projects that I'm going to share with you today. I received a large clear block in my first Paper Pumpkin kit to use with all my future stamps. That tool and my scissors are the only extra items I really need for completing my kits as is. But you'll notice that I substitute that block for the ergonomic Stampin' Up! Blocks since I have several of those. I also use my larger version of the ink pad and some additional adhesive, such as my Stamp and Seal. You won't need these, of course, but they are available products from Stampin' Up! And they're a bit easier and quicker for me to use while I demonstrate in my video. By the way, if you're looking for ideas for past kits, visit my website at StampYourArtOut.com, click on Paper Pumpkin in the top menu, then choose Recent or Older Posts. I've been creating and sharing alternates since March of 2013 when Paper Pumpkin first began. I'm excited to create, so let's get started. As you can see from the cover of the instruction manual, we're going to make 4 of 3 different kinds of cards if we followed the instructions as is. But we're not going to do that in this video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the parts and pieces for each of these 3 cards and I'm going to turn them into 10 cards. I like to do that with lots of my Paper Pumpkin kits. I like to see how much mileage I can get from one kit. So instead of making 12 cards from this one kit, you can make 40. So it's more than tripling the cards in the kit. I take the parts and pieces for those cards and I split them into different ways. So I'm going to do that with 3 of these cards. We're not going to make all 40 in the video. I'm going to make 10 of them. I'll show you how to do that with those 3. And we're going to bring in extra cardstock. We always need extra cardstock for card bases. So I have some basic black. I've also got some basic white envelopes. So what you'll need to make 3 cards into 10 is you're actually going to need 10 envelopes because we're going to cut up those decorative envelopes in the kit. Those are going to be card pieces. So you're going to need 10 cards, and 10 times 4 is 40, so you would need a whole pack of medium basic white cards or envelopes in order to do the whole kit this way. And then you're going to need for those 10 cards 4 sheets of basic black cardstock. And so 4 times 4 is 16. You need 16 cardstock pieces if you're going to do all of them. The dimensionals that come in the kit, not a whole heck of a lot. So I'm going to recommend you bringing in some extra dimensionals. We sell those also in the online store. A ribbon or a twine. Now this is a new ribbon that's going to debut on August 3rd. You can see that it's similar to one that we already have in basic black. This is our basic white, and it's our white glittered organdy ribbon. I love this. So if you can't wait, you can use twine. The twine that I'd recommend is the Baker's Twine Essentials pack because you have lots of variety of colors to choose from. Now, if you've been a subscriber with Paper Pumpkin for a while, you probably can go to some past kits and grab some twine from those. And then I am going to bring in an extra ink color because we're using the black cardstock. I thought it would pair up nicely with our Tuxedo Black Memento ink. One more item that you don't need to have, but you may want to have it, is some more self-adhesive sequins. So I've already made one full set. You can see I've used 1/4 of my sheet for those 10 cards that I have off to the side that I'll show you later. But if you want to go sequin happy, you can invest in the Artistry Blooms self-adhesive sequins. Now they're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. The blue, you can see I've loved them up very much. The sequins are slightly larger, except like the blue ones are about the same size, but these here are kind of an in-between stage of the smaller and the larger ones that come in this pack. It's hard to see, isn't it? Sorry. We're going to start right off the bat with a fun fold. But the card is very simple to make overall. We're going to take our one sheet of the basic black and we're going to score it down the middle. So cutting it, or not cutting it in half, scoring it in half at 5.5 inches. And then we're going to bring it to the 2 3/4 inch mark and score it again. We're going to rotate this way and we're going to cut it in half at 4 1/4 inches. Half of 8.5 is 4 1/4. So now we have 2 cards that look like they're ready to become fun fold cards. Because yes, you're going to do 2 of them. We're going to make easel cards out of them. So you're going to fold it in half. And if you have a bone folder tool, you can come in and give it a good crease. Then you can take and fold it this way. So you're kind of folding it like inward, I should say. Kind of like a, I don't know. I wanted to say a Z, but it's opposite of a Z. An L. It's an L. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing to this one. And one of them we'll just set aside because we won't do that one until later. Okay, now we're going to bring in the card base that has the mountain scene on it. And we're going to cut that at 4 inches wide. So you're going to have a little bit extra here that you won't need. That's okay. We're going to keep the same height though. I like the height, so we're going to keep that. We also need an envelope flap. So we're going to go ahead and trim off this envelope flap, and I find it's easiest sometimes to turn your envelopes over so you can see where the score lines are on there. So we're going to turn it this way, and having a really nice sharp blade on your trimmer is going to help. If you're going to cut right through a score line, either on envelopes or cards or whatever, if you have a dull blade, you're going to cause a lot of fraying. So I changed out my blade to make sure I had a nice sharp one. So these are the pieces that you'll need for the fun fold. Really super easy for the first card here. We're going to stamp 2 sentiments and we're going to do our Tuxedo Black ink. So the first sentiment we're going to do is right across the front of this card, kind of right underneath the moon. The world awaits you. So you're going to pounce up and down to ink up your stamp, stamp it so that it's pretty centered. And now we have our message at the top. On this one, let's trim it down a bit first. Oops, forgot to do that. And I think we're going to trim off about 3/4 of an inch on each side. So I'm bringing it up to this mark here. And if you have the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, it's just slightly below the 2 centimeter mark here. And that should give us, and flip it over so I have the straight edge against here. That should give us a piece that, oh, maybe it goes, okay. So we're going to trim right up to the 2 on that side, and then we're going to trim again. Sorry, right up to the 2 centimeter mark should work, because then you will get your 4 1/4 inch wide piece, and it will look pretty even because we're going to keep that little rounded edge here. So go right up to the 2 centimeter mark. That should work, I think. Okay, then, and if this goes a little bit shorter than 4 1/4 inches, that's fine too. Explore, we're going to stamp that up towards the top, somewhat in the middle. Okay, now we're going to mount. I'm going to close this so that our folded edge here is on the front, and we're going to mount this to the front, but just put adhesive down here. I'm making sure that it's flush with the bottom and that the edges are even on each side here. If this is going above and beyond, you can always trim it, but that's not that far. It's like a little hair. Okay, this is going to go up on dimensionals just on the top edge. So I'm just going to bring in my sheet of extra dimensionals here. In fact, use the edges. So I'm going to cut along the edges here and show you that little trick in case you don't know about it. You can use the edges of your dimensional sheets because they are just as sticky. And we're just going to put the dimensionals along the top edge because we want it to pop up a bit, but we still want to be able to write on the inside of our card. And if the whole thing is up on dimensionals, we won't be able to do that. So now we're going to open this up and you're going to position it. So I've placed the bottom card edge here along one of these dark lines. And I'm just checking the number of squares going upwards, and it looks like it's pretty even on each side. So now I can press this down. So this is popped up here, but this is flat. In fact, oops, we forgot to put a little adhesive down here to hold that portion of the card down. So this is an easel. It just closes like this and opens like that. And it sits against that little edge. So you've got an easel card ready to go. Oh, one more thing. Let's embellish it a little bit. Let's put on one of these guys here. We'll just set that down there like that, just for a little fun little shine on the inside. Easy, right? The next one is probably the next hardest card, which means it's still super easy. We're going to cut this in half, and then we're going to score it this way. But we want to do two of them, so let's do the same thing we did before, where we score at 5.5. We rotate it and cut at 4¼ inches. We'll set this card base aside for the next card later on. And we'll fold this and use our bone folder, give it a good crease. From the envelope that we just cut, we want to remove this portion here. So the best way to do that is actually to trim off the sides. So we're going to come right up to the edge here so it's flush, and we're going to bring our trimmer blade right through here, and it will actually separate our pieces from there. So let's flip it over, do the same thing. And then we can open it up completely, and we can cut right through the score line. And then we can take and trim off the funky rounded sides. And it doesn't matter how far in this goes. We'll trim it to 4 inches. How does that sound? And then what we'll do is turn it this way to trim off the rounded edge. And to trim off the rounded edge, you're just going to bring this corner and this corner in line with the channel of your trimmer, and you're just going to slice. And it doesn't matter how many inches on the side it is. It's just for the inside of our card. So we'll set that aside because we'll be using that. We're going to bring in the rest of this card here, and we're going to grab the inside piece. This is not going to become scrap. This is actually going to become part of our card. You have two choices. You can either have a more colorful side like this, or you can have the white side. I'm actually going to use the more colorful side. So we're going to stamp on this side like this with our black ink. And we're going to stamp the message that says, "Let your light shine." And then we'll turn it over, and we're going to use a glue called our multi-purpose liquid glue. And we're going to get into all the little nooks and crannies. And then we're going to transfer that to the front of our card so that our words are upright. Our trees hopefully are upright as well. And then we're going to grab our ribbon and take a length of that and tie it in a knot. So we'll need about 15 inches of ribbon. I'm going to take and put the rounded side going this way, and we'll just tie an overhand knot. And sometimes you have to twist ribbons so it doesn't do the little going upward kind of thing. So it doesn't curve upward off your card. And then we're going to bring this down. See how I haven't put any glue dots in there to hold it in place? I'm just able to manipulate it by curving the card in like this. Okay, so I think I've got it where I want it to be, and I'll just adjust a little bit more here, trim off the excess. Although that glitter looks kind of good on there. Now let's bring in the sequins. So that's that, and then on the inside we're just going to add this piece here. So now we have two cards done. See, it looks like the moon with the shadows of the trees. For the next card, we're going to bring back in our base for our easel card. So here's our second base. And we're going to trim up another one of those envelope flaps. And again, let's try the 2 centimeter mark this time. 2 centimeters, I think that'll work. And then on this side, 2 centimeters. Now don't cut yet, look to see. Yep, it's about that. So 4 1/4 inches. And then I've already done another one like that, and I've stamped it. This is going to go on the inside. This is going to go on the outside. I'm also going to be using this little camper. So what we need to do is remove these two sections, and then we need to trim our camper off and away from the frame. And you may need to come back in, because we are going to use this as a card, and just trim that wheel out of there like that. Okay, we'll set that aside. We don't need that. But we do need two other parts and pieces from the kit. We need our trees. We're going to stamp on this piece. We're going to add this one right above the score line of the front portion here. So we want to have a little bit going beyond, about that much. So maybe 1/4 inch high in the center. So let's take the tree next, and we're going to add some multi-purpose liquid glue to this lower section here. Try not to get too much glue coming out, especially if you're not used to it. Glue is great for these tiny, intricate pieces like this. So if you're not used to it, just know that a little goes a long way. And we want to add that about there so that it's almost touching the left edge, but it's going straight up on our card, like that. So you kind of want to, you don't want to look at the horizon, you want to look at the actual line of the tree. The camper is next, and for the camper, we're going to add that right about here. So you can see it's a little higher than the tree. So once you've figured out where that's going to go, then you know how much glue to put along the bottom. I'm recommending glue because I think it's harder to get in there with the seal adhesive for that thin space, but you could definitely use the glue dots in the kit. Add that right about there. Make sure that the bottom of the camper is in line with the bottom of your card. And nice thing about glue is you can maneuver it a bit before it completely dries. This next piece though, we're going to add with dimensionals. And that's going to cover up the base of the wheel. It's going to be even on both sides as far as space to the right and left. It's going to have an alignment with the bottom of the card, like that. And then let's decorate the wheel with a little sequin going there. And then let's add a couple sequins in the sky to represent stars. So there's our second easel card. Super cute, right? I'm loving it. We're going to do two cards now that are very similar. Similar pieces, just positioned differently. And we're going to use our envelope pieces mainly for this. This one we've pretty much cut down to just the front portion. We're going to do the same thing to this one, and we'll set the third envelope aside for later. And these are the pieces that you'll end up getting when you cut your envelope edges off and you cut the envelope in half at the score line. And then you're going to also cut these two fronts in half. And cutting them in half when they're normally 5 3/4 inches wide would give you two pieces that are about 2 7/8 inches wide. So now you've got two from that envelope, two from the other, and you've got this flap, which we're going to actually use the white side of, and we're going to stamp. I'm going to bring in the Stampin' Pierce mat. This just adds a nice cushion for when I'm using a solid stamp like the tree stamp that comes in the kit. So we're going to ink it up with our garden green ink, and we're going to stamp it. And I'm going to come down from the top of the flap first, like that, and then I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to peel off these edges to give me even more white cardstock, or white paper I should say. And we're going to tilt our tree and fit it in that way. And again, that way. That way you can get 3 trees out of one sheet. I only needed 2, and I've already cut one out, but what you'll do is you'll take your paper snips, and it's nice to leave a white edge, so as you're cutting, just go about 1/16 of an inch all the way around. We call this fussy cutting. If you've never done fussy cutting, the best way to do it is to just angle your paper, and I'm not really doing a lot of tilting with my scissors. It takes a bit of time, but it is an option, something that you can do with any stamp set images from your kits. We're going to put those off to the side for just a minute. We're going to bring in another sheet of basic black cardstock, and we're going to this time score it in the opposite direction. So we're going to first bring it in to the 4 1/4 inch mark. We're going to bring our light grayish colored blade through, and we've scored it now, and then we're going to turn this way to the 5 1/2 inch mark, and we're going to trim, and now we have a card that opens this way instead of the up and down. But we're actually going to bring in that second one that we did, so we're going to make a card that goes cards that go both directions for these two pairs, these twins we're going to call them. I'm just going to put that on top of there for a minute. Okay, so they're each going to have a little design on the front, and one of them is going to have a ribbon going up and down this direction. So that is why, that's why we're cutting them this way, because I wanted to have the ribbons going in 2 different ways. Where did my ribbon go? Here it is. Okay, so that one is going to have ribbon going this way. And this one is going to have ribbon going the opposite way. This ribbon is about 14-15 inches, and this one is about 15-16 inches, maybe 17 if you want. Okay, so these little trees, we'll set those aside. Actually, we need those in here for just a minute here. We're going to use the green ink again. This one's going to say Explore. So I've cleaned off my stamp from the black ink. We're going to lay this on here just so we kind of have an idea of where it's going to be. And then we'll stamp the word Explore up here. And on the other one, we'll have the word Congrats. So on both of these cards, I am centering this piece, this layer here, making sure that the border is about the same on each side and the same on top and the bottom. And then I'm kind of adjusting the ribbon to go with where I want it to be. Let's take and add our trees. And it would be nice if you could do the decorative paper on the inside, except I think that this label part makes it look wonky. So I flipped it over. Now we have a nice big white space to write in. And those are 2 more finished cards done mainly with the envelope, sorry. Okay, next one. We're halfway through the cards. For our sixth card, we're going to need this portion here and this circle. So we're going to trim this to 4 inches. And then we're going to trim off, let's trim off a little bit off the bottom. We're going to trim it down to 5 1/4 inches. We're going to bring in that card base that we set aside, this one that's folded in this direction. And then we have about 6 inches of that glittery ribbon. And then for the inside of the card, because again, we've got a black base, so we need to have a portion of the inside that allows us to write inside. So we're going to trim our envelope. And if you want to have an extra tall piece in here, you can take and do what we did before, where you pull these pieces off like this. Or you can even cut through, because you know that they're loose there, they're not glued all the way. So you can even cut through. Let's see if I can do it. I should have done it the other way. That's okay. We're going to cut through about this far. Let's see if we did it. We're just trying to see how tall we can make it. So if we peel that off, oh, it's still glued. Okay, we'll go in another 1/8 of an inch or so. Let's try that. Yeah, see, now it separates. So you can do it that way, or you can do it the tearing way and then trim really close to that glue line there. So we've got a piece that's about 4 3/4 inches tall. And then if we turn it this way, we can get a piece that is about 3 5/8 inches. So that's taller than our piece that we had before. And it kind of fills in that space a little bit better. Okay, so what we want to do is put this ribbon across here, and we want it to attach to the back. So we're just going to put a little strip of seal adhesive, or you could use your glue dots from the kit, and we're kind of eyeballing it, although you could use your grid paper or a ruler and measure it out. I'm just wrapping behind and sticking it back. And then to keep this from because we're going to put this whole layer up on dimensionals, to keep that from sticking flat down, we're just going to cover up the portions that, see, we have adhesive coming all the way down here even. We're going to cover up those portions with some dimensionals. And now we've got that all covered up, and we don't have to worry about the risk of it sticking down in the middle. Okay, let's set that aside. We're going to work on the hardest part of this card, which is to stamp a sentiment that's really long in this space. To do that, you want to make sure that you have a super clean stamp to start with. So we're just going to stamp it down a few times. I don't see any ink coming off of it. You can even rock it a couple times. We'll open up our ink pad, and we're going to mask. Well, we're not really going to mask. We're going to omit. But you could mask if you want to. We're just going to omit. So we're going to ink up only the words "the world." And if this is too hard to do, you can put some masking tape or some washi tape or a post-it note over that section, and then ink it up, peel off that tape, and you're good to go. So we're going to bring this up as high as we can on the circle, stamp it down, and see, if we weren't careful, that little A could get on our circle, but we had cleaned off our stamp really well. So now we need to clean off our stamp again. Test it out, make sure we're good. Okay, and then we're going to ink up just the portion of the stamp that says "awaits you." All right, so we've got ribbon that's kind of popping up here. That's okay, we're going to cover it with the circle. And if you remember, our dimensionals are just along the sides here, so it's okay, we're not double dimensionaling it. Double dimensionaling it? Is that a word? I don't know. Oh, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just hold the dimensionals in that space. Okay, so when we do that, it's still just one dimensional layer thick in the center of the card. So that's going to help on postage. And on the inside of the card, you could have the white side or you could have the blue side showing, because this isn't very distracting. It's light enough to draw on. So in this case, I am going to choose the blue side because it ties in well with the colors on the front of the card. All right, that card is done. Next one. We haven't cut this one up at all. So let's work on this one now. We're going to trim off this section, and we're going to trim off a little bit further in. So we're going to go to the 4 1/8 inch mark, which is going to give us even more of the design. Okay, and then because we trimmed to the 4 1/8 inch mark, we're 1/8 of an inch away from the width of the card base. So we need to be 1/8 of an inch away from the height of the card base. So we're going to go to 5 3/8 inches. This is a stamp we haven't used yet, the Dream Big Aim High stamp. We're going to grab our garden green ink and stamp that across the center of our banner piece. We're going to grab a couple strips of that pretty ribbon again. Now if you're using the twine instead of the ribbon, then you can get creative and maybe do some loop-de-loops on the back. But we're just going to add 2 strands. And you just want to go no more than the length of the banner. We're going to turn this banner over. We're going to run adhesive along the bottom edge of it and along the top edge. Then we're going to trim kind of at an angle, that piece like that. And this is going to go right down on top of it. And I think if you hold the ribbon flat, then you can angle. You can start right in this corner up here, right where my scissors is pointing, and kind of go tilted out and away like that, so it stays nice and straight and you get this kind of a look. Let's do the same thing with the other piece. So now we want to angle this way, hold it down flat. It would help if you guys could see it, huh? Let me put this card here. Okay, so we've angled it like that, and then we're going to start at that corner, and we're going to have it kind of come downward like that. And there we have our fun little banner. We're going to put that on dimensionals, and our dimensionals also act as kind of a security for holding that ribbon in place. And that is going to get added to this piece, and we're going to probably bring it in right around here, making sure that this edge of the bottom edge of the white piece is parallel to the bottom edge of the card layer. We're going to bring in those little tiny lightning bugs, fireflies, yes, that's what they're called. And we'll grab our green ink again. We'll do our biggest one in the one that's glowing up here, little spot that's glowing. And our other one, because they don't always glow. Did you know that? That one will go down here. We need a card base. So let's grab our last sheet of the basic black. We're going to score it in half this way. 4 1/4 inches, rotate it, cut it in half at 5 1/2. And we're just going to add this directly to the front. It just has a small border of black all the way around. And then we need an inside portion for our card. So we're going to take the rest of this card and we're going to cut it, preparing for the one that I'm going to make next. So for the one that we're going to make next, I'm going to trim right up to this design here. So you can kind of see it in the channel of your trimmer. And you're going to cut right up to it. Oh, we didn't get quite there. We'll do that again. And that's why a sharp blade helps too. Okay, that one's ready for our next card, but we've got this piece left over. So I'm going to trim right up to those score lines. And then this piece here should measure 5 1/2 inches by 4 1/4, and we're going to trim it right in half at the 2 3/4 inch mark. And now we have 2 white panels. This one's going to go on the inside of our piece for our card that we're going to do next, and this one's going to go here. And this card is now complete. The next one, we're going to use that card base that we had prepared earlier, trim that down, or bone fold that, and then these pieces here. For this one, be careful when you're punching these sections out, because again, this is usable. These pieces are usable. Okay, we're going to stamp on this one with our tuxedo black ink. And then we're going to add this to the front of our card, but we're going to do it with dimensionals. But before we do that, we're going to kind of hold it in place. And I think using dimensionals, sticky notes, will help really well because you want to make sure that this stays centered for the outside border area. These pieces we're going to add directly, and I would say use your multi-purpose liquid glue. And you're going to put your puzzle back together. These pieces will go back in place. Take Your Pick tool is excellent for this. Don't have to worry about getting it underneath your fingernails or anything. Okay, now we're going to pull the Post-it notes away, or sticky notes. And we're going to slowly bring this out and away. That would look cool by itself, wouldn't it? That would work. Well, gosh, you could make 11 cards. Okay, but for this one, we'll just go ahead and do what we were planning to do. So you need to put dimensionals all throughout this section. You don't really need them here because this will hold up by itself. And the sides of the cards, we want to make sure that those are held up too. So at this point, I would say cut those skinnier pieces. And then you're going to go right on top and line everything back up again. And the nice thing about the black cardstock underneath is that you're going to get that shadow that really, it's kind of like a little extra, it's an extra coloring underneath that really makes the lift on this portion of the card look prominent. Let's accent with a few of the fun little sequins. In fact, now that we have our Take Your Pick tool out, this is perfect. I'm going to tuck this one under so we're not quite seeing it. And as I'm looking to see what I have left, I had a little bit of a panic. So hopefully you watch the whole video through before you start creating, because this piece was actually supposed to be the one cut in half and meant for the inside of these two cards. We needed this portion, which was one of these middle pieces. We needed that one for our next card. So that one we're going to use as a whole piece. I'm going to blame it on the heat because we are experiencing some hot days and our air conditioner is not working right now at our house. So, all right, for this card, we need to put a little score line in this extra piece, and we're actually going to trim that off too. Let's go ahead and start with that. So here's our card base, and then we need a piece that's going to go on the inside here. So we can score in about, I think, 2/3 of an inch. I'm sorry, did I say 2/3? 3/8. It's the heat. Okay, so we've got our score line there, and that's going to give us plenty of room for our line of adhesive. And we're going to use the multi-purpose liquid glue for that because I want to make sure it's super strong. So we'll add just a strip of adhesive, strip of glue, I should say. And that's going to connect right in here like this. Turn your card over and press it this way, and then you've got the flatness of the table that'll help hold it down. And you still have like some exposed here, but when you fold this over, the cardstock edge is not showing. So it's going to be like the cards that are in the kit, like a trifold type of card, only we don't have a decoration here. We're going to make a decoration. Let's set that aside and let that dry for a minute. So we have the tree stamp, and that's what I'm going to use on this one that I'm showing you now. But I've done something different on my other one. You actually get an extra white circle when you split up all the pieces of the kit, And what I did is I used the white circle as a mask, and I took a blending brush, and I took the crushed curry ink, and I did a sunshine all the way around in that little window area. I'll show you that soon. But I didn't want you to have to invest in a ton of extra product for your alternates. So we're going to stamp a tree. And that's going to go there. And then we're going to use the Dream Big, Aim High sentiment. We're going to stamp that in green. And that's going to go within this section. We're going to open up our card. And did you see what happened here, by the way? That's because I did not have my pierce mat underneath. Makes me sad. There is ways to fix that. I can tell you that, I suppose. I'll do that in a second. But on this one, we're going to stamp some trees on the inside too. We'll stamp one in the middle, but we kind of want to have it off the edge a bit. And then we're going to stamp onto our grid paper to lighten our ink somewhat. Oh, we got a sequin on there. I saw that one floating on my ink pad. So we're going to stamp off. And then we're going to come back onto the card, but we're going to go a little bit lower. We're going to stamp our light green tree right there. Do the same thing to the other side. Stamp off. And now we have kind of like a little forest on the inside of the card. So dream big, aim high. So if that's bugging you, you can take what's called a blending, a blender pen, and you can bring the ink in. You can try to line it back up and stamp it down. Or, you know what we should do? Is just do that whole, try to get a lighter color look. And that overlapping of the ink may help. So there's the front of our card. And on the inside, we'll stamp the word congrats. We're on our 10th card. I'm going to fold this, give it a crease. We're going to ink up our tree again in the garden green color. And now, this is where you bring in your plastic guide that helps you to see where, what your stamps look like. And we're going to kind of put this in here to see how far up we can go. Now on the one that I made beforehand, I went up too high and I had the bottom of the tree showing, which didn't look good. So you want to make sure that you're low enough for that tree to be hidden. So we want to come maybe like an inch high. Perfect. You'll see how I fixed the problem on the other one. Now we're going to add some sequins. I want them to sort of peek out when the card is closed. We want to stamp Let the Adventure Begin. There is one more stamp image that I forgot. It's the one that has the little tree, the second part of the tree. And this one is done. You would write your words, your things that you want to say below the tree area. I know that's not a lot of room, but you want to have the sky open, right? So just be careful about where you write on a card like this. Now, some people were asking in the Paper Pumpkin Fan Club on Facebook about this image, and I actually think it was kind of weird that that Stampin' Up! Was stamping this image on the tree. I think this portion of it fits better, but then you're, of course, stamping into the white area. But I just thought that that didn't fit. I actually thought that this one was supposed to go in there like that because of the way these trees have those little speckly looks on them. I don't know. I just assumed that that's what you'd fill it in with. So I did that on one of the trees like that. I don't know, but it's an option. So because I did a set of cards prior to the video so that I could make sure I was giving great directions for the ones I was sharing with you, I have 2 sets of these cards done now. So I have 20 cards ready to go with half my kit. On the version that I did on my own before the video, I did some extra things. So first of all, I used Night of Navy as my base cardstock instead of the basic black. I did use the Tuxedo Black ink, although you could use Night of Navy. And you see here, on the moon, I've actually painted on Wink of Stella. It's like a sheer glitter kind of color. You can see if I tilt the moon. So it's got a little bit of a sparkle to it. So that's how I fancied that one up. It's the same card on the inside though. On the 2 different cards here, you can see the black one, the one that I did with you. I did a knot. I've also got the side of the moon that had kind of that colored edge. But on this one, I flipped it over and used just the white side because I added the Wink of Stella along the edges there. I also did a bow, and the inside is the same. On this one, it's pretty much completely the same. Just a blue sky versus a black sky. The same. The same. So you can see it looks great in Night of Navy also, doesn't it? Same. Oops. Yeah, pretty much the same on that one too. And the same here, although remember I made a mistake and did the wrong insides on mine. It was supposed to be the envelope. Silly Rachel. So you can see there's a peek of the envelope. But notice on the front of this one, I did a little bit more yellow here. So what I did is before I actually pulled all the pieces out, I took and I grabbed the blending brush and I just rotated around in a circle to get some glow of the crushed curry ink outward from the lantern. Oh, and I also put some Wink of Stella into the light area. So that's the difference between those two. And then you can see on these two, these are quite different. Here, I'm going to shove these out of the way so we don't have distractions here. These are quite different because on this one, like I told you earlier, I used that extra circle as kind of a little mask here. And then I brought in the blending brush and the crushed curry ink and did a sunshine in there. This is where my extra sequins went. And this is the difference on the inside. So you can see one has a sunshine towards the top and one has the trees towards the bottom. So depending on if you have extra supplies or not. And then on these 2 cards, the difference is I have an extra tree on this first set that I made, the first card that I made, because remember I told you I made a little boo-boo and my tree is stamped up a little higher. So I took the extra piece from the inside of the camper card and I stamped an extra tree and just cut around it and stuck that in there. For those of you that follow my blog, you know that my family goes to my parents' lake place often in the summer. And so whenever I have a chance to scrapbook some fun up north kind of scenes, I jump on it. This kit is perfect for it. So I'm going to use 2 of these card bases to make a 12 by 12 scrapbook page spread. The 12 by 12 paper that I'll be using for the base comes from our In Good Taste Designer Series pack of paper. You actually get 24 12 by 12 double-sided sheets of paper in this pack. So it's really an awesome value because it's not twice the cost for twice the paper. And the papers are perfect. You get lots of different textile kinds of designs. These are just a few. I'm going to be using these right here. And then some other products that I'll be pulling in will be tree punches. And I'm actually going to use this new one, which is a tree border punch. But you could use this one if this is the one that you have on hand, or you could even just fussy cut a bunch of trees if you want to do something like that, or just omit it. It's an optional border. We're going to make a little border with this. I'm also going to bring in a blending brush, and I'll be using that with the Garden Green color ink. I'll be using that Wink of Stella that I introduced to you earlier. I'm going to be trimming down some basic black cardstock for photo mats. You could use any color for the photo mats that suits you. And then I'll be using some of that glittered organdy ribbon along with one of these blends markers. This is an alcohol-based marker that you can color on non-porous surfaces with if you'd like to. And I'll be using the dark Bermuda Bay color for that. So let's kind of eyeball what I was picturing. I'm going to have a couple card bases like I had said. And so this card base is going to be cut up, so is this one. And you can see like this will be put here. I'll have a portion of it here. And then I'll have one of these pieces down here. And I'll be using these extra pieces on probably other projects, so I'm going to set those aside and make sure that I trim carefully. So this is the way the layout's going to look briefly before I add all the extra stuff. I forgot to mention that I just trimmed out the lamp portion along with this piece here, the background piece. And I'm going to do what I did on the card where I pop the background piece down and have the lamp up higher. And then the measurements for the photo bases here are 4 1/8 by 5 1/2 for all 4 of these. This one underneath is at least 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. I made mine 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. This one here is 3 3/4 inches wide by 3 inches tall. These are all 3 inches tall, and these two are 3 1/2 inches wide. So 3 1/2 and 3 3/4. I take a different approach to adhesive when it comes to scrapbooking. I use the same kind of adhesive, but I use less of it. That way, in case when I'm ready to add photos, if I need to peel something up carefully and replace it in a different way, I can do that. So just a light amount of adhesive. And I also like to have I take my photos more horizontal than I do vertical. So I like to make sure that I accommodate that in my mind and on my papers, on my scrapbook pages. So I tend to put more horizontal pictures on them and 1 or 2 vertical. All right, let's work on this piece next. We're going to pull out our grid paper. And I want this to stand alone. I don't want this to be inked up at all. So I don't know why I pulled in my grid paper. I don't need my grid paper. I need to put it directly onto my page. What I want to do is use my multi-purpose liquid glue. And then I'm just going to place this piece in here as a guide and do the same thing I did before. I'm going to pull the lantern up and away again so that all those pieces stay in place. And now, because this is going to get covered, this brown background paper, the wood grain color, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I'm just going to go ahead and color directly onto this piece. I'm going to use the crushed curry, and I'm going to use the blending brush that I've assigned to crushed curry. This is why I had the grid paper. I remember now. When you first ink up your blending brush, you want to kind of, move it around in circles onto some scrap paper before you add it where you want it to be. And if this worries you to have, exposed edges here, you can always put some scrap paper next to it while you're doing the blending brush. I don't think it's showing up too much on the wood grain paper anyways, especially on the outer edges. Now we're going to stamp our title for our page before we put this down, because this is going to be put down on dimensionals. So what we want to do for our title is we're going to ink up just a portion of the stamp that says "Let Your Light Shine." So I'm taking pieces of Post-it note and I'm covering up what I don't want to have inked up. I'm going to remove the Post-it notes. And now I have the title for my page. We're going to create a border now to go along the bottom of the page, and for that you just need an 11-inch strip. Mine is about 1 3/4 inches high. You could probably go a little bit shorter. In fact, you could probably go like 1.5 inches. We're going to grab our tree border punch and we're going to just position it. Doesn't matter where you start, and we'll just punch down. Now after you've punched down, you'll see that it only punches out this middle section here. That's all it does. These things on the side here are guides to help you when you do the next punch. So you're going to line it up so that those trees are covering up that spot, and make sure that this edge here is flat against the back here. And when everything's lined up and flat, then you punch again. And then you can keep moving it and line it up. Make sure this is flat. And you can keep on going until you have a long strip. We're going to stop here for now, but I want you to do yours a little bit longer. Now we're going to bring in the grid paper, and we're going to take our garden green ink and the blending brush. So in our card kit, we actually have that look where the colors kind of flow into each other, kind of watercolory, you know, blended colors. So I want to have that same look created for my tree border. So I'm just going to take my blending brush, get a little bit of ink on there, and I'm not going to worry too much about going off on the scrap paper first because I kind of want that dense ink going onto my trees. And so now you can see that really fun look that you create. Then the next step is to take your long border, and again, you're going to make a slightly longer one than I am. Just go the whole length of that 11 inches. And then you're going to come in and you're going to put some of the multi-purpose liquid glue on the back side and add it along the bottom of your page. The next step is to take our ribbon, and we're going to color it with the Bermuda Bay Blends marker. This is the dark one, as I had mentioned. We're just going to color it like this using the side of the marker. Because the marker is alcohol based, it's going to dry permanently, kind of like a Sharpie marker. So you'd have to use rubbing alcohol to get the color to move, which tends not to happen after you've made a project. So we'll set that aside to dry. Make sure that you cap your marker really well. And while we're waiting for this to dry, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the fireflies onto the top left sections of the page. And now that this is dry, I'm going to go ahead and tie it around this portion, this layer from the page. And I've actually added some Wink of Stella underneath the firefly area. Next, I'm going to add this to my page, making sure that I have room either on the side or on the top to slide my photo inside. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my finished page. And there is my finished layout. I'm so excited to add photos to these later. So I want to apologize because there's a few clips in here that have some static. I actually had that issue earlier. I replaced my microphone thinking that's what it was, and now I'm discovering that it's got to be the connecting part. So I probably have to replace that instead. Anyways, so there's the finished page layout, and I apologize again for those staticky clips. Now that you've watched my video, I hope you can see that there is so much more to these kits than meets the eye. With just a few extra supplies and some imagination, you can go beyond and make so much more with these super affordable kits. I hope I've inspired you. Thank you for watching. It builds creativity to think outside the box. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can catch more paper pumpkin videos that I've shared using past kits and more that I'll share with future kits. Also, be sure to visit my website at stampyourartout.com so you can view close-up photos of these projects, see photos of other paper pumpkin kit ideas in future and past posts, and see many other great ideas that I share using Stampin' Up! Products. If you want to get spoiled with extra goodies, gifts, prizes, and extra exclusive Paper Pumpkin project ideas, remember to get your subscription started with me as your demonstrator by clicking on my personalized link below. What's in store next month? The August 2021 kit titled Hope Box comes straight from the heart of our Stampin' Up! Co-founder, Shelley Gardner. It's reminding us to seek connections, cherish friendship, and share hope. So make sure that you have an active subscription by August 10th. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Now I'd like you all to go and stamp your art out. Bye-bye.